Hi, my name is Nacho, welcome back to the channel, and we're back with more Rings of Power, a show secretly sponsored by Wargaming, where any interaction between characters, no matter how small or casual, it's considered a ship. The bad thing about making these videos, other than the fact that I have to rewatch every episode of the Rings of Powers while making them, is that my Twitter feed again is filled with human goblins who constantly post the gayest shit about it. Like this individual who alludes of what the world would have been if Galadriel, the Lady of Light, married with children at this point of the story, would have said yes to fucking Sauron.
I'm surrounded by idiots.
And the curious thing about the large majority of these accounts who do nothing else but posting and reposting stuff about the show is that they all seem to have spawned a few months before September 2022. But I'm sure that's just a coincidence. But back to the show, we are reviewing 2 episodes again because I've been lazy and now I'm forced to catch up. Episode 4 begins with Commander Elrond prepping their mission to Eregion with our gal Galadriel, who is incredibly butthurt about this. And what's crazy to me is that this loser attitude coming from Galadriel, the Lady of Light, makes absolutely no sense considering that she's 3,500 years older than Elrond, and people mind-numbingly insist that this is the most Tolkienian shit ever made. I hate this scene with a passion. We cut to the party of elves who decide to run to Eregion. Okay, I would have personally used horses, but I guess we know how Galadriel gets whenever horses are involved. And I just can't help to make the comparison with Aragorn, Gimli and Legolas doing the exact same thing while they were chasing the orcs. Was that the intention behind filming it like that? To reminisce to the Two Towers? Because otherwise, why send them on foot? Anyways, they make it to the collapsed bridge and we get a look at the specialist. Oh my god, the fucking Netflix A-team. They really went all out with this lot, didn't they? You got a fake ginger, a black dude, an Asian woman, and a potentially autistic pasty white boy who's in charge of navigation. Anyways, Galadriel taps into her ring and senses danger in one of the path options. Elrond continues to emphasize how much he dislikes the rings, just in case we didn't pick it up in the last 3 episodes. We're back with Gandalf, the stranger, who's looking for the Harfoots in the desert, pointlessly because he sent them flying to their deaths in the last episode. But in this search, he runs into someone else. Now the argument that I've seen the most in the interwebs is how can people dislike this show, as well as the Acolyte, when it literally gives the fans, and I quote, everything they've ever wanted. Like Plagueis in the Acolyte and now Tom Bombadil in Rings of Power. And my response to that is those TikTok videos of people cooking what I can only describe as a hate crime, where they grab bacon, chips, cheese and all delicious things and they mix them into these freakish lasagnas that look like a guaranteed trip to getting your stomach pumped. Those terrorist attempts at cooking have all the things we like, but they still look like shit. Just because you shove a bunch of stuff that people like in there doesn't make it automatically good. Which is what she said. But the stranger runs into a tree that he thinks has his staff as one of his branches, but turns out to be an ant who swallows him whole.
Poppy! Get up!
How are they alive? They were shot into the air, and the softest place they had to land was probably a bed of rocks. I can't take this show seriously, cause why of all people do the Harfoots need plot armor? They don't do fuck all. Anyways, they see one of the hunters and they jump off a cliff, which is fine now, because we know that they don't take fall damage. And they run into this guy.
Where'd you lot come from?
Where'd you come from?
Live here.
Harfoots live here.
What's an Harfoot?
Who are you exactly?
I'm nobody.
Oh fuck. He's a retard.
I'm Poppy.
What is this? Why are we shipping 2 of the most uninteresting characters ever put to film? Because this guy is Harfoot 2.0, by the way. There's just another dirty lot created by these assholes because they can't say the word hobbit, so they have to make another race of halflings called stools. Stores, same shit, to move their story forward. Anyway, Smooth Brain over here takes them to meet the village leader, who, same as the Harfoots, is a strong black woman. And you might think, well, they're desert people, so it makes sense if they're a little bit darker skinned. Uh-huh. Not much point focusing on them anyway, so we cut back to Tom and Gandalf, who lets him out of the tree by gaslighting him.
Dirt. Dig deep. Drink water.
I mean, you're seriously telling the tree to drink water in a desert.
Dirt. Dig deep. Drink water.
Breathe air.
Now, inside of the cabin, not Gandalf is having a bath. We hear what seems to be the voice of Tom's wife, but we know that for some reason she's not there, which is just another point that this show makes against married families. And then we go into a long monologue on how important and powerful Tom is, triggered by the question, what are you?
Eldest. That's what I am. Tom was there before the river and the trees. Tom remembers the first raindrop and the first acorn. He knew the dark under the stars when it was fearless.
Tom surely likes to talk about himself in the third person. Very convenient that Gandalf asked the question, what are you, and not who are you? Which would have been a much normal question to ask during a conversation, but wouldn't allow for all that exposition to happen. So not Gandalf asked Tom to teach him how to do magic, and we learn from him that he might not be the first wizard he taught. The other one being the Dark Wizard, who some might think could be Saruman, but because that's another name they can't use, that's another character who shall remain nameless. Tom, who according to himself is older than the stars, trusts upon the rookie mage to save the world from two sorcerers who are more skilled than him. Back with the specialist, who tries to travel through the road that gave Galadriel the heebie-jeebies, and they run into the Barrow Whites, who attack them, and the first one to go is the black guy. That's racist. Now what's crazy about this fight is that they are surrounded by immortal ghosts who are immune to their attacks, who can chain them from afar and pull them into their graves where they can snap their bones like twigs, but they give Elrond enough time to go into each one of their graves, pull weapons that are effective against them for all 5 of them to use, and I love that this is a line in this show.
According to law, only the blades with which they were buried will return such creatures to rest. According to law.
You could not live with your own failure. Where did that bring you? Back to me.
Anyways, apparently the Barrow Whites were waking up because of Sauron, which of course it is. This is all part of the plan he devised while he was hanging around being a ghoul monster for a couple of minutes. But the Barrow Whites that were heavily advertised in the trailers and such lasted about 10 minutes against the A-Team, which some found to be very underwhelming and totally out of place considering that they are not supposed to appear yet based in the lore. But then again, who gives a fuck about the lore, right? Back in the forest, Don Lemon and Isildur are still looking for Theo, who disappeared in the last episode. Not finding any traces of him, they gather the villagers when Isildur's new girlfriend suggests to look north instead. Arondir then questions how does she know to look north, and after a few lies she tries to run and he reveals she has the mark of Adar. That Arondir only noticed cause she tried to burn it out. Had she leave it alone under her hair that perfectly covered it, no one would have noticed. So Isildur is mad at his now ex-girlfriend. Are you guys bored yet? Cause I am. Also, he had 3/4 of a kitchen knife embedded in his leg in the last episode, and now he's walking fine. Man, the healing factor with these Númenóreans.
Might be easier to balance if I had use of my hands.
And easier to escape.
She doesn't need her hands to escape. She's got legs. Anyways, Isildur gets stuck in quicksand. Arondir tries to get him out, but he sinks as well. It was nice knowing them. We cut to the Harfoot. I'm just kidding. Isildur's ex-girlfriend grabs a stick to get them out, but a giant bug sprawls out. That's when Arondir opens the bug's stomach from within and saves them both. But wait, that's not all, cause we also have reused dialogue.
What was that?
There are nameless things in the deep places of this world.
There are older and fouler things than orcs in the deep places of the world.
Back with the stools, Nori tells the little chick the name of Lenny Henry's character that just so happens to be the same name of one of the stools from their legends. Yada yada yada, non-canon shit, blah blah blah, made up bullshit. Long story short, they're setting up Nori to be the founder of the Shire. Yeah, that's what it is. It can't be nothing else. Fuck this show. That's when the Sand people show up on the village and strong black woman tries to welcome them.
To what do we owe the pleasure?
Yep. I'm with the Sand People on this one. Back with the Specialists, who are just awkwardly standing around the black guy's grave when Gal tells Elrond that no matter what, he must not face Sauron after having one of her visions. He tells her to fuck off cause he doesn't like the rings, and that's when Pasty Boy shows up and tells them that they are hearing drums. But again to the forest, where Isildur tries to make things up with his ex-girlfriend when she draws a sword on him. Suddenly an Ent shows up and sends her flying. Rest in peace, whatever your name was. Arondir manages to calm down the Ents and prevents them from killing them by fondling the Lady Tree. Turns out that they were the ones that kidnapped Theo, as well as Sheila's husband, who, with Isildur around, is now canonically a cuck. By the way, she survived getting hit and splashed against a rock by a fucking tree. The Specialists run into the marching orcs heading to Eregion, and instead of heading there and warning them first, they suggest that the best course of action is to trail back to Lindon and inform Gil-galad. Which by the time they get there, gather the troops, which are already sailed into Mordor by the way, and head back to Eregion, which is 750 kilometers away or 241 miles for you Americans. If they use the bridge, which they can clearly not use anymore, everyone in Eregion is going to be dead, placed on a stake, or burned to a crisp by the hand of the loving fathers that compose the orc army. So no, it's not a good idea to do that, you fucking twats. But a separate pack of orcs hunting a horse hit Pasty Boy with an arrow, and smelling the blood, they closed in on them. Now by this point we know that sometimes this show can be a bit silly, wacky, asinine even. Well, this is where it gets fucking retarded. Because as Pasty Boy is dying, Galadriel puts her hands over his chest and Rey Palpatines the arrow out of him while curing his wound. Which is not only a power Galadriel didn't possess, it's also a power the ring didn't provide. And I'm 120% sure that she will not ever use this power again, despite the multiple circumstances that will arise that will require it. Until the end of the season, people defend this show as the most Tolkienian shit ever made. Surrounded by orcs, Gal gives the ring to Elrond and goes out to distract the orcs by herself. Girl boss moment incoming. Cue the music. Does that ring any bells?
Go back to the shadow.
Gal's luck eventually runs out when Adar knocks her off her horse. You see boys, that's how easy it is. It's not like she can use magic. Episode 5, Thank the Gods, is not that interesting and doesn't have a lot of things going for it, which is good for me, because that means I have less to edit. While Khazad-dûm continues to deal with her sun outage, King Durin receives the rings in the mail, which immediately give him powers, which I'll explain now so I can skip the scene when he does it later. Allow him to see the mountain. He demonstrates this by digging into a random wall that crumbles in a specific way, allowing the sun to shine back inside the mountain. He then delivers a speech to his subjects saying that he pities those who live in the surface and are a slave to the sun, which also includes them, because 2 minutes ago they were about to starve to death if they couldn't get the sun back inside the caves. But disregarding that, the delivery of this whole sequence by Peter Mullen was actually quite good. Happy with this, the dwarves go to Eregion and Narvi reveals the doors of Durin, made with the help of Celebrimbor. This is one of the few moments where the show is actually close to the source material. Moments like this are going to be very rare. Annie, it's not very okay. Why are you not okay, Annie? With the delay of the rings of men, when Celebrimbor tells him that he doesn't trust the men enough to make rings for them. To which Annie says,
I shall make the 9 myself.
Back in Númenor, Al-Pharazôn is now king, after the most underwhelming coup d'etat ever put to film, and let's just say, the powers get into his head.
Once, when you were at her breast, your mother prophesied that you would come to ill ends. Impress me in the task that I'm about to place upon you. I will tell you, fail to do so, and I shall have to find other places to make use of you.
Elendil tries to comfort Muriel, who's blind as fuck by the way, and this will suggest another nonsensical shipping like Galadriel, Calibrimbatar, Potard, fucking Isil, whatever her name is, and now Miriendilil. Sponsored by Wargaming. The following morning, Elendil finds Isildur's maid and the rest of the soldiers giving away their uniforms. Turns out that Pussyboy and Tits McGee, with all that smug in their faces, stripped all the soldiers loyal to Muriel of their ranks, which is not only very stupid, but also canonically inaccurate. In a rebellious move, Elendil renounces his position as captain and manages to piss off Pussyboy by having everyone in the plaza shouting, "Oh Captain, Mad Captain," as he walks away. We're back in Castle Doom where Disa and Durin learn a little bit about the real world.
I won't pay it. I blame the king's new law. For every coin spent, another goes to the crown. Ring tribute, he calls it.
We call that taxes. Disa uses her throat powers to find a crystal she dropped, but from the depths, Durin's Bane sings back at her. We're back to Durin Sr., who now heavily affected by the greed created by his ring, pushes Narvi to dig deeper and deeper. Now I've said this a couple times, but the negative effects of all the rings don't start taking place until Sauron creates the One Ring. And even though the dwarves resisted his influence, in turn their rings enhanced their greed. This however happened over the span of many years, and not the second they put it on. But that would be the case if we care about the lore, which this show clearly does not. Durin Jr. rushes in telling his father to stop the dig due to Disa's recent discovery, because again, leave it to a woman to be the finder of a major historical event in Tolkien's story, like Durin's Bane. This is where Durin Sr. explains how the ring allows him to see the riches within the mountain and orders Narvi to keep on digging. Back in Eregion, the Rings of Men are not going so well. We get a glimpse at the ESG approved workforce Celebrimbor has in his shop, and Nirdanya, who just did a lab through the unseen world, described what she saw in there, as well as the real face of Sauron, to Cal. And props to the actress, cause that little monologue was very well done. The thing is, I speak Spanish as my first language, and Mirdanya sounds very close to mierda, which means shit. Durin Jr. shows up, raising his concerns about the effect that the rings are having on his father, and while he does this, Sauron begins planting the idea on the smiths that Cal is not himself after crafting the first 10 rings. He also takes the opportunity to rizz up Blondie by telling her how much she reminds him of Galadriel, which would be a great compliment if this was Lord of the Rings. But considering that this is Rings of Power, if I was her, I would be extremely offended. Back in Numenor, Elendil and Isildur's maid take part in a ceremony of the faithful when Pussyboy barges in, announcing that they are shutting down the temple. Now, in preparation of what's to come, when this episode premiered, everyone on Twitter was calling Tits McGee and Pussyboy the most hated characters ever. Rightfully so, because they were being cunts. But my problem is that in this case, Pussyboy is being a cunt just for the sake of being a cunt. He is a villain with no substance, with no weight. Everything he's about to do can be traced back to "Daddy told me to do it, so I'll do it." That's it. So he interrupts the faithful ceremony, and before kicking them out, one of the priests asks if they can put away an effigy to allow the spirits within it to rest. So what does he do? He breaks it. Why? Because he's being a cunt. Elendil then clocks him in the face, deserved, and before he can punch him back, Isildur's maid starts kicking his ass. They tussle and bustle until Pussyboy draws his sword. Isildur's maid disarms him and breaks his arm. Game over, kill the little fucker, right? Well, no. And my problem with this scene is that it looks like they shot it so many times and then spliced together the takes where the actor was trying different things. And what I mean is that when we see him first, he's very riled up, eyes fully open, enraged. But after we cut to Elendil telling him to put the sword down, look again. Semi-relaxed expression, already winding down, and as a man, that's not how that works. Despite a respected figure telling him to calm down, there is a process that one must do to go around the rage. Especially if you're holding a weapon to the throat of a little piece of shit that very much deserves a front row seat to the afterlife. But here Isildur's maid goes from 100 to 0 in 0.42 seconds. He's chill. He drops the sword, conveniently rather close, and starts walking back to Elendil saying, "Yes, Captain, my captain." And... This is the most predictable and preventable death I've ever seen in my life. And what bothers me the most is not the fact that he died, because I know nothing about the guy. He got promoted because he hit Gal once with the sword. That's it. He had it coming. But the Shields had the nerve to compare this to the death of Boromir, which, to say the least, is ludicrous, and to say the most, is fucking stupid. Because Boromir was so fleshed out in the Fellowship that by the time he died, sacrificing himself to save Merry and Pippin and redeeming himself from almost giving in to the One Ring, I don't need to explain how incredibly emotional that moment was. Marvelously acted, incredibly scored, with a dedicated soundtrack with lyrics in Elvish that say, "I do not love the sword for its sharpness, nor the arrow for its swiftness, nor the warrior for its glory. I love only that which they defend." Nothing in the Rings of Power will ever come close to being that powerful, because the themes of sacrifice, selflessness, bravery and duty that are spread throughout Tolkien's story and present in the majority of his male characters are not something the Rings of Power are interested in representing. Sadly for all those who mourn Isildur's maid, his death means nothing to me. Manipulated by Anatar, Celebrimbor pushes his ESG employees to work harder, creating a toxic workplace. And despite the shit that I give the character and the costume design of Celebrimbor, when the scene demands more dramatic acting, Charles Edwards actually delivers a very pleasing performance. Outside the city, we see the orcs climbing over the hill, in broad daylight, with the sun not having a negative effect on them. I wonder if they forgot about that. Elrond, who managed to cover 750 kilometers incredibly fast, warns Gil-galad about the imminent attack on Eregion, even showing him in Galadriel's ring. Despite all of that, he dismisses his request to send over the troops. We then cut to Galadriel as a prisoner of the orcs, who is told by Adar he wants to form an alliance to fight Sauron together. And we fade to black. Episode 6, 7 and 8 will be standalone videos because the memes that I got for episode 6 alone are epic, so stay tuned for that, because this show is getting stupid. But if you guys just find it usually use like, check out this video next for the review of the previous episode. And as always, I've been Nigel, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.